Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 219 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about all of the new and upcoming and exciting events that we've been working on here for the last couple months at Wolf Precision and some of the details that we're getting into with some of the new programs. So it ought to be a great podcast. Really looking forward to 2025. Without further ado, here we go. Okay, before we get started, I want to say thank you to TriggerTech. TriggerTech is the maker of fun rifle triggers. They are one of the safest, easiest to install, and easiest to adjust triggers on the market. We recommend them for all of our customers for any custom rifles, and we think if you want to upgrade your factory rifle, a great place to look. So if you want to upgrade your shooting game and you want to do it with a trigger, stop over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. We'd also like to thank MDT. MDT is the maker of fine rifle chassis. They make a lot of different makes and models that we really enjoy. So you think of the Oryx chassis that's sub $500 and multiple chassis up to $1,000 and a couple chassis over $1,000. But really, from hunting to beginner to intermediate to competition, they have a lot to choose from. And in chassis, it's not one size fits all. So it's really nice to have a big selection to find the stock or chassis that fits you. So if you want to learn more about MDT, you can stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com today. So we hope everybody had a great Christmas and a happy new year. Everybody's safe and sound. And here we go into 2025. So we have been working on a couple things here behind the scenes for several months and trying to really get a sense of the direction that we would like the business to go over the next 5 to 7 years and really focus on what we are the best at. Like, what is our calling? What is the impression that we can make in the industry or that we can offer people that really ups the game as to what else is offered in the industry or across the marketplace and really stay in the arena that is our A game. And for us, the first part of it is, and this will tie in a little bit later for some of the programs that we're going to be offering, but I would say here personally that one of my favorite things to do is to teach. I love sharing the art of long-range shooting. I love sharing the art of riflemanship. I love sharing, my passion for safety and my passion for just, when that round goes downrange and rings that steel and you watch somebody's eyes just get as big as saucers because they just watch the impact through their own scope and they hit something the size of a softball at 1,000 yards. And for the next 48 hours, that's what you hear is that shot over and over again. And they talk about it the fifth time as if they just did it. I mean, it's almost ingrained in their soul, the passion that we have. And it's just awesome to see other people get exposed to it for the first time and be like, wow, this is awesome. So when we teach and when we get a chance to share and help people enjoy what we love to do and the art of marksmanship, it's almost like a mirror. Like we share that passion. And when they get excited and they get hooked and you can just see it starting to burn and sizzle a little bit, that drive or that fascination that I had when I was, 12 and 13 and 14 years old and still have today, it's awesome. It's like the spark that lights it. And it's awesome to be part of that with people. It's awesome to see that. I wouldn't change it for the world. And so if I had to say one of the best things that we are the best in the world at is teaching. We're very passionate about it. It is in our heart. We are givers, sharers, and teachers. We want to bring people in and share with them all the passion that we have and the excitement and the joy that we get from this type of shooting. And so that is our wheelhouse for sure. The other aspect that plays into is what can we offer the gun industry? There's such a big industry out there right now, and it's always been that way, and whether it was custom rifles or not. But there's so many people that are so good at so many things that any business that decides that they're going to take on everybody and I'm going to make every part of the rifle and I'm going to compete on the open market with it, my personal philosophy is I think they're sort of crazy. The reason I say that is you have to find not just what is you're good at, but what you're the best in the world at. What could you be? What is that one thing that you could be the best in the world at? And, for us here, could we make a high quality chassis? Yeah, I think we could. Could we make one that's maybe better quality than any chassis on the market? I think we could develop one, and I think we have the capabilities of machining. Could we offer something in the industry that's better than what's on the market? Well, maybe better quality fit or finish, maybe better tool paths. But outside of that, I don't think so. And the lesson's been learned many times in many industries is you can make a better quality product than everybody else, but to the customer, if it doesn't meet a need or doesn't fix something, it's just a shinier car. Some people may buy into it and they might pay extra for it, which, by the way, when you try to go that route and beat everybody on quality, that also means you're not going to be able to compete and be competitive on price, at least not until you get something that's in mass production. But you also have to have something that you made better, right? So for me personally, I am not interested in going out and becoming a chassis maker. I mean, if I have time on my hands and we get everything in the business going and I really don't have anything to do, I might draw a chassis for fun and I might put it on the market for fun, but it wouldn't be my calling. Same thing with rifle barrels. I have been asked many times, like, have you thought about making your own barrels? And I'm like, yep, for 10 seconds. It's not my wheelhouse. I am not an expert at making barrels. And you take somebody like the Kriegers and John Krieger, his second generation family that's running the business, you would have to take 40 years just to learn what he has forgotten. And besides the mechanical parts of it, to say, well, this is how we drill a hole, and this is how we cut a lens, and this is how we cut a groove. And then, but the art of it, how the cutter slides across, the different lubricants, how much lubricant, what type of lubricant. Is there any special ways that you're sharpening your cutters to make it cut nicer? Is there any special lapping techniques? Have you found that you want to cut it more on the ends, deeper? That way when you lap it, it evens itself out. How much do you leave for lapping? I mean, there's just, besides the root knowledge of, you could probably use AI and say, how do I make a rifle barrel? And you can actually buy rifle barrel making machines now ready to go. You could drill it and you could pull a button through and you could make your own barrel. But there is so much more to making a super high quality rifle barrel that there is an art. Yes, everybody can buy a paintbrush. Everybody can buy a piece of art paper to draw on, and everybody can buy the best paint there is. But it's the hands that it's in that draws the picture. That is the key to the art. So, for example, you take somebody like any master artist of any era, the secret isn't the paintbrush, nor is it the paint, nor is it the paper. It's in his hand. And it is that art and craft that he is just able to wave that brush around magically and make something appear that makes all of us look in total astonishment. Like, how did you do that? That's the business you want to be in. That is the person you need to be in that craft if you're going to take that on as a business. When we started getting into making rifles, going on 20 years now, I spent time with some of the best machinists across the entire country, and I was very blessed that they were very open and very helpful. I've actually worked for some of them as far as doing some filming and got a chance to really be mentored by not just great gunsmiths, but also some really great machinists. And for that, I'll always be grateful because I learned so much about the art of machining and the art of metal removal and all of that through the years that for me personally, I found it fascinating. I found it almost to a point of obsession is, how do you machine something and hold 1/10,000th of an inch, 1/30th the width of a human hair? How do you even measure that? Well, to be truthful with you, there's a lot of machinists that can't. There's a lot of people in our industry that can't measure 1 to 2,000ths, let alone 1 to 2/10,000ths. There's an art to it. There's a craft. There's a calling in the soul between your mind and your heart and your fingertips that allows you to really feel with both heart and soul that measurement to get it exactly where it's supposed to be. And I know that sounds strange, but that's really what it is. It's just like any major artist with a paintbrush. it's in the fingers. It's the art and the magic of it. And so when I started working with rifles, and then just to give you a backstory real quick of where we are and what we do and what we are the best in the world at, is when we started making rifles, I looked at everything that was involved in a rifle. Like for me, every part and piece was suspect. Okay, what can I do to make a better rifle? And by the way, this was for myself. Like I wanted to build a better rifle than I could buy. I knew I had the skills. I knew I had the heart for it. I wanted to figure it out. And so in the early years, I would actually true a Remington 700, and not the way they are trued today. And a lot of the newer listeners might not even have seen a Remington 700 action because they've been out of business for a while. But back in the 90s and 2000s, that was the go-to receiver for custom action work if you didn't buy custom. And so in a lathe, I would actually dial in the raceway of the receiver after it was honed perfectly straight and true. And I would dial the bolt bore raceway perfectly true. Then I would cut the face of the receiver. I would actually cut the threads backwards in a lathe. I would actually go in and mirror the threads with the cutter before I would actually go back and engage it, and I could actually cut those threads perfectly true, which, by the way, is the only way that you can actually true threads. And then I would actually cut the locking lugs on the inside, and then I would do the same thing for the bolt body. I would dial in the bolt body perfectly straight and true. I would actually do the lugs. I would do the face. I would do the actual bolt face itself, the outside of the lugs facing the barrel. I would also machine metal sleeves, and I would undercut the bolt body. I would install the metal sleeves. Then I would cut those metal sleeves just enough that they would clear about 2 to 3 10,000ths, and then I would make them an oval. And that allowed, when I opened the bolt up, that I would have more clearance working the bolt back and forth. And then when I closed the bolt up, it would lock the bolt up more perfectly straight and true, and it wouldn't have as much slop in the receiver. It took, honestly, 3 to 5 days to do a receiver properly. And any mistake that you make, you could destroy the receiver. So I can proudly say, I'm going to knock on some wood here, I've never crashed a receiver, and I've never crashed a barrel and destroyed a barrel. I've never had to take a barrel out and scrap it because I made mistakes. I'm very passionate about it, but I'm also very careful. You know, I measure 2, 3, 4 times. I look at the tooling. I make sure everything's sharp. I get my head straight as to what the next procedure is going to be and how I'm going to approach the tool, how I'm going to feed everything in, where I'm going to pull it out. So all of this stuff is done and played in my head multiple times before I actually run it, because you don't have to overcut by much, and you've destroyed all of your work, and you've made those sleeves much smaller, which means now you've got 3 to 5 thousandths clearance total, and you have to redo the whole thing, which, by the way, takes 2 more days. So that was my heart, right? Is, you know, I wanted an extremely accurate rifle, and I would go through every part of the rifle like this. So the receiver, I'm just using it for an example as to what we do, but I would go through everything with the rifle. The stocks, there's a lot of different issues that can happen with stocks and chassis and things you have to sort of keep an eye out that can sort of rear up and cause you some problems. But where I found the weakest link in the modern bolt action rifle, this is me personally, was the fact that we're still chambering from technology that was from the 1800s. We still run a reamer into a barrel that has curve in it. The lands and grooves are curved. There's until they come up with a way to get around that, that's just simply how it is. Your rifling in your barrel is not perfectly straight. If you roll your barrel and you cut it in half, or if you could see through it like X-ray vision, you would see that as you turned your barrel, it looks like a little bit of a jump rope. That is very common in almost all rifle barrel making. And as you run a reamer deep into the barrel, it causes issues with the throat. And the throat is the magic where accuracy happens. When that bullet slams into that rifling, you want it to be perfectly square on all 4 sides. And then you want it to start square. There were some old bench rest articles that I read early in my shooting career that said for every 1 or 2 10,000ths that your throat is off center, in other words, crooked, lands and grooves are coming back closer to the bullet on one side than the other. It opens your group up 1/10 of an inch at 100 yards. Well, the average factory gun can be off 3 to 5 thousandths. And then you take in there the quality of the barrel, the alignment of the bolt to the receiver, all these other things that happen in the bolt face, to the actual cartridge itself, the quality of the ammunition and its capabilities. And now it's no surprise that most factory guns guarantee a 1 MOA accuracy. So what we're the best in the world at is chambering. And to be the best in the world at it, we couldn't do it old school. We had to find a better way to chamber a barrel. And we had to find a way that not lent itself to dialing the curvature of the bore out with spiders. So there's an old school bench rest technique. 99% of your gunsmiths do not even use it, or I would say more than 90% don't know how. And it is like having your fingernails pulled out. So we actually have spiders, or basically 2 4-jaw chucks, one on each end, and we're dialing in the curvature of the bore where the throat's going to be. We're dialing that portion straight, and we're cutting everything else out. So that way at the very end of the reamer, we know that that's perfectly straight. And it makes great shooting rifles, and that's how I chambered. It took me on average 8 to 12 hours to chamber a barrel that way. Amazing. I never had a rifle come back, ever. So the trick was, how do we repeat that? Because to do that is almost like having Leonardo da Vinci, or whoever you would like to talk as an artist, right? With that paintbrush in hand. So I know a handful of gunsmiths that are really good at this, and I can count them probably on my right hand and still have a finger or two left. It's a really hard thing to teach people. And I tried to bring in gunsmiths and train them because we were growing and I really needed help in the chambering. And they quit. 2 or 3 days on the job, they're like, I don't want to chamber this way. I'm out. I just want to run a reamer in, right? So it led me down the path to say, okay, I can't hire the talent. In other words, there's not too many Leonardo da Vinci's out there that we can just hire off the street. What we're the best in the world at is chambering, because we found a way to duplicate what took me 12 hours through the process of the ACE system. It allows us to make a perfectly straight and true chamber and attach it to a perfectly straight and true throat that's cut into the barrel. And we can do that and get away with it over and over again 1,000 times because we're not cutting deep into the barrel. So you think of a traditional reamer, the throats on the end of a reamer forms the rifle chamber. And it can be 1 3/4 inches long, and it can be 2.5 inches long. Well, as that reamer is being forced way into the barrel, the throat's on the very end of that, and it's free floating in there. That's where you get your curvature of the bore. That's where you get your crooked throat. And that's where your accuracy over and over again gets completely robbed from you. So we found that separating those two critical points and making them both on their own allows us to make the perfect chamber. But then when we cut the throat into the barrel, we're only cutting in a very small amount in the straightest portion of the barrel. And it allows us to absolutely repeat the process over and over again without having to hire Leonardo da Vinci. And we can make a world-class barrel and perfectly straight throat every single time. And we can do it efficiently, and we can do it consistently, and that's the key. So we have a process now that repeats what I used to do by hand, and we can repeat it over and over again without my hands actually having to touch it all the time. And that was the art of growing. So when we're working towards what we would consider a business model for the next 5 to 7 years is we are sticking with what we are the best at. We are the best at teaching, and we don't take that lightly. We're very honored and privileged to have served so many people over the years, but it is our calling. It's what tugs at our heartstrings when we're actually working every day. And even when I retire someday, I'll probably still build rifles and I'll probably still teach until the day I can't do it no more, right? But in the industry world, we are the best chambering process on the planet. We are the most accurate chambering process on the planet. We are the best at chambering modern bolt action rifles. We are the best at making extremely accurate rifles using a system that is designed to stop the damage that is done by running a reamer in traditionally developed from the 1800s. And that's what we're going to focus on. We are going to focus on chambers and chambering barrels and some of the tooling and training that's required for the customers to learn how to install and uninstall and do all the work themselves from their home. And that'll come in a later podcast. We'll talk about some of the things that we're launching on our Wolfpack system. So when we're getting into 2025, the reason I'm bringing this up is we are super hyper-focused on the training portion of which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. And then we're also super hyper-focused on bringing that training into the building side, focusing on chambering barrels with the ACE system, and then bringing in and training customers on how we do it, bringing in and training customers so that they can actually install the ACE themselves, uninstall it, change calibers, all the cool things. So as teachers, we are going to open up the armory here and allow students or those that are purchasing our equipment to come in and use our armory under guidance and learn and maintain and build, and even a couple steps further. So think of like, I don't want to get too far into this. We're going to talk about this more in another podcast, but think of like a garage where you can rent a bay and you can go in and have the mechanic over your shoulder, showing you how to take care of your car. That's what's coming here. And so we're going to be a training center. And we're going to teach you some of the other things that you'll need to know. How do you check to make sure that your stock's okay? How do you put your scope on properly? And actually, if you need to, have somebody over your shoulder looking and helping you do all of that. So those will come in further podcasts. Now, going back to the teaching portion of it and what we're trying to do and what we're going to do in 2025 with our range, one of the things that we get constantly asked is, do we have memberships to our range? And can customers, new and old, can we get access to come on the range and train? Because we have a pretty special range here. We're really centrally located, probably within 3 or 4 hours of millions of people, as far as from New York to Ohio to Virginia to Maryland to New Jersey the list goes on and on, right? Yes, in 2025 we are. So in 2025, we are going to open up a system with our Wolf Pack that allows customers on certain days of the week access to our shooting range. And that allows them to come in and actually work and maintain and build. And then also they can get to the range and zero and shoot and maintain and really enjoy our facility with guidance. So we'll have RSOs there, and the range will be professionally run. It won't be a here's the key to the gate type thing. But we are going to open the range up for 2025 to members of the Wolf Pack. Now, what is the Wolf Pack and what does it mean to the new customers out there? So the Wolf Pack is really a culmination of everything that we've learned that we can pass on for training. So everything from the fundamentals of marksmanship to learning to build and maintain custom rifles, all of that is going to be designed around the heart of training. And part of the Wolf Pack membership will give you access to our online long-range shooting school, our online reloading class, which we just posted up, as well as our online tutorials that will start April 1st on building and maintaining rifles, which we call our Prosumer Gunsmithing class. Part of that is if you sign up for the year, you are eligible to sign up and register to come in and use our range here for training. Now, I'm going to back up just a little bit, and this one I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to offer with the range so I don't mislead anybody or have somebody misunderstand what we're talking about. So safety at the range is super important to us. I remember I went out to Idaho with my uncle, and we were getting ready to go on, I think he was doing a bear hunt, and I was filming for him, and we went to the local range there to go ahead and sight in and get his rifle all ready to go. And then when we went back a couple years later for an elk hunt, same thing. When we got to the range, there was a range safety officer at the range. We signed in, you had to be a member, and we signed out, and we paid $50 an hour to be there. The range officer called when people could go down range. The range officer controlled the firing line, made sure everybody was clear and safe. And even at that, there was probably 12 or 14 people, so it was pretty chaotic. What we're going to do with the Wolf Pack is we're going to have a morning session and an afternoon session. It is going to be limited to 5 members in the morning and 5 members in the afternoon. You can sign up for both morning and afternoon, so you can stay and rotate through both sessions in the same day and stay there and spend a full day. But we're trying to break it up. I would say 3 hours on the range is a lot of work done, and most people shooting 3 hours straight, they've sort of had their fill and they probably accomplished everything they want to do. But we are going to have somebody there at the range, and it's a safety thing, and we are going to limit it to 5 because our obligation is always that nobody's on property without one of us being there and helping to maintain, because there's just a lot of things that can go wrong, and we owe it to and have an obligation to make sure that if we do this, that we make it the safest, most professional environment possible. And then we are going to use this to expand the range. We're going to put in a 300-yard 22 range. We're going to do some more law enforcement training at the facility. It's going to be really awesome. But I want to tell everybody straight up, it is not a range membership. If you sign up for the Wolf Pack for the year, and the reason we do that is we don't want somebody to sign up for the Wolf Pack for a month abuse our range for a month, and then just walk away. There's a lot of effort that goes into building and maintaining a range, and we would like a commitment from the customer or for the person that would like to use the range that, yes, they've signed up for the year, but the Wolfpack for a year is not a range membership per se. There are days you can sign up for online. Those dates will open April 1st, and they are limited to 5 slots in the morning, 5 slots in the afternoon. You can sign up a month in advance. So in order to be eligible to use the range, it is required that you are a member of the Wolfpack and that you sign up for the yearly. That makes you eligible. And then, of course, you can see all the details on our website at wolfprecision.net. Those pages are actually live. So we launched them on January 1st. Super excited. But that is really, with the Wolfpack, the first thing that I want to cover that's coming for this year is we're hyper-focused on the training portion, because that is what we are really good at. And then we are hyper-focused on just staying in our wheelhouse of developing our next generation A system with the tools for the customers to take them on and off themselves and make the best shooting barrels in the world, because we can chamber the best in the world. And we have the best chambering system in the world. And hyper-focus on that to grow and expand that part of our business and really get that into the marketplace. And that's another podcast that we'll get into when we talk about some of the details of how that's going to work. But then on the training side of it, supporting the customers and giving them a place to come in, learn, train, and how to build and maintain it. So if you want to learn more about everything exciting with the Wolfpack, we're going to dive into the Wolfpack a little bit more on some of the options that are coming up and some of the things that are going to be there for you to enjoy. Now, the Wolfpack is for 18 and older. Patreon does require identification, and that's to protect us. And you can sign up monthly to take any of the online classes. If you want to use the range or come to some of our special events, it does require your membership. But there are some other things that are going to be involved in the Wolfpack as well. And we're going to dive into the Wolfpack, and specifically next week on our podcast, we're going to get into some of the details of what all includes, what all the offerings are going to be, and then some of the more advanced instructional classes that will come along with it that makes you eligible if you attend the online long-range shooting school or if you attend the online reloading class. We got some exciting stuff that's attached to that. So that'll be pretty cool. Before we wrap this podcast up, I do want to say thank you to our last sponsor. I want to say thank you to Krieger Barrels. Krieger is a maker of fine cut rifle barrels. They are some of the best in the country. They are a family-owned and operated business out of the great state of Wisconsin. If you would like to buy one of the best barrels on the planet, they have a program called Krieger Direct where you as a consumer can log in, see what they have in inventory, and potentially have a world-class barrel in as little as 2 to 3 business days. So they call the program Krieger Direct, where they try to keep inventory up for customers to purchase barrels. So if you want to learn more about Krieger and you would like to see if they have a barrel in stock that would work for you, you can stop over to KriegerBarrels.com. That's KriegerBarrels.com today. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen to the podcast. Wish, again, everybody a happy New Year. Super excited for 2025. If you'd like to learn more about the Wolfpack and all the exciting things that are kicking off with it, the site is live. You can actually see all the things that are coming up, as well as some of the new classes and events that we are offering. You can stop over to wolfprecision.net. Don't forget about our online long-range shooting school. It is our in-person shooting school online that you can attend from the convenience and comfort of your own home. Really proud of all the work we put in that. We'll be doing some range work with that here when the weather breaks in April. And last but not least, if you enjoy the podcast and you would like to share it, please feel free to do so. If you'd like to leave a comment on the podcast, we really appreciate that as well. And then last but not least, we only have 5 or 6 slots left for our in-person shooting school for all of 2025. So if you'd like to register for the in-person shooting school here in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, there are a very limited number of slots left. We encourage you to stop over to wolfprecision.net and grab those before they are gone. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us. I really appreciate it. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you're listening to Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.